Okay. Friday edition of the After Show. You got Wink and Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
And Justice over here on the West Coast of the contiguous United States of America. It is Angle of Repose Friday.
Yes.
Here on the After Show, this is the day that we pretty much like to get into a particular angle on the Barca Lounger and read Wallace Stegner's Angle of Repose. But I got to tell you, who reads anymore? I mean, we're going to be like the president of the United States. We take about a half a paragraph, and I don't know, I'm too busy. I got to do other things.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And he does. Speaking of doing other things, how are you doing, Wink?
Not bad. It's 19 degrees, but it's sunny out. It's a little on the nippy side, but it's sunny at least. There is some sunshine, so no snow, at least for the foreseeable 10 minutes. Hopefully, cross our fingers. Reminder to get in the chat, just go to netrootsradio.com, scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there's a link to the chat, so click that and join us there.
And, you know, I make light of the donate, contribute button and all of that. And it really, it is a serious consideration because it's truly, it's true. It's not fake news. Your generosity allows us to keep the lights burning here, and it is much appreciated. I don't know. I've mentioned before, I could never be a busker. Put me in like a little dive bar in a corner on a stool.
Yeah.
With my guitar case open, I'm okay. But out in the corner, I don't know, couldn't do it. But that's
it's pretty
that
tough
being
to do.
said, you can also get after show pods by way of Spreaker, the raw data file that comes up fairly soon or within the day, and then the perfected file. Oh yeah. It's almost the one that's condensed for the daily briefing. Yes, you know that's true. And packed full of tidbits of information that is actually the show without all of the, the hisses and that kind of stuff. Cleaned up. And that comes by way of Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Well, here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently just a smidgen above 40 degrees. We're going to go to a high of 65 with rain. So that's our springtime. All right.
Not bad.
Yep. Going to go to the nursery today and look at color. Why don't we look at color to put into the guide? Yes, indeed.
Yeah, there you go.
But also looking at things to put into, the vegetable garden too. Got to do that. I don't know what I'm going to do. I love asparagus, but you kind of need a little bit of space for asparagus for it to, I don't know. That's more space than I want to donate to it. Tomatoes, of course. Tomatoes. We'll have tomatoes. You can grow tomatoes almost anywhere. Grow them up a wall. Cucumbers. Have cucumbers that way too. But I got to tell you, I get a little tired of pickles. Especially the pickle we're in, Wink.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Man, oh man, oh man. This is why, because, you and I, you even more so because you're on the East Coast. I mean, you heard about Donald Trump, at least his dad or something about him before I did.
No,
I got to tell you,
Trump's in the paper once a week at least. Even just
and I didn't really pay much attention to him. I don't know. Maybe I did when the ostentatiousness of him, when he started calling in to Page 6 and all that.
Yeah.
Maybe that. But at some point, or I don't know, maybe it was like, around the same time as that stupid show, The Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, narrated by this British guy, so it kind of aired a royal sense to the fact that if these people have money,
right,
and they are conspicuous consumers of it, well,
practically royalty.
Wouldn't you like to genuflect to that? And people did. They turned on the TV and they tapped their heart 3 times and then they said their blessings and said, "My God, could I prosper? Gospel, make it so."
Indeed.
And Trump came out around that same time in my I don't know, pop historical linear
Yeah, he did.
memory.
He came in right around that time when that show was on. Yep. Yep.
And it offended my sensibilities because I was a punk. I mean, we were getting away from the highly polished, the highly produced. We wanted some truth. And Donald Trump was not the truth. And what made it even worse is that, okay, I admit, we all go through these stages, but he was also associated with predatory land grabbers, and real estate stuff. And in my, I don't know, kind of economic class consciousness of the time, that was, I have to admit, it was fairly, reductionist. Real estate agents and used car salesmen, I mean, you couldn't trust them, right? I mean, let's be real. And the only people that you couldn't trust more than the used car salesman or the real estate agent was the used car salesman's manager or the real estate agent's broker. It was like a closed circle, so we wanted truth, and we were a garage band, and like most were in the day. And I don't know, Trump, he was glitzy and glossy and fake. Still is. Okay. So now here we are. I got to tell you, they thought maybe surveyors could be president. They never thought like somebody like this could be president. You know what, Wink? You just know it. Well, David today had he had to take his computer to the hospital.
Okay.
Okay. So we listened to St. Patty's Day from last year. Yep. When we had a real president still.
Indeed.
And everybody thought differently about the outcome of what was to be. I mean, like, no real mention of Ruskies then.
Right.
Well, these are the issues we will be attending to this St. Patty's Day for 2017. Isn't that amazing? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Well, less than 20% of Americans think incarceration should be punitive. See, yeah. I'm not out there. I'm not on some fringe. Come on. I hate this. Highly skilled Canadian nurses are banned from their Detroit hospital jobs because of Trump's immigration ban. Oh, yeah. I don't get it. And the courts gave Trump great news about his Muslim ban, and almost no one noticed. Eek. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm bringing the bringer of bad tidings, right? I'm sorry about that, but that's our job sometimes.
Yep.
Well, for the last half, though, it's the Friday News Dump and Recycling Center news that's been repurposed with a purpose. And I don't know, carrying on the theme of bad tidings, I apologize. Unsealed court documents show that Monsanto orchestrated a massive cancer cover-up. Well, we all suspected, didn't we? And an Irish historian debunks the racist myth of Irish slaves that neo-Nazis, Confederacy apologists, and yes, Trump supporters just love to share on social media. All that, plus the Connect, Unite, Act, Daily Codes, Community Calendar, and more on the after show with, I keep saying it, that ever so fine fellow over there on the East Coast with his ever so subtle East Coastal elitism. Why hide it? And his name is Wink. And this guy all the way back over here on the West Coast. And I have no doubt that hiding it would be a mistake. Because, hey, truth, even if it hurts. And my name is Justice, and we do this 5 days a week for an hour-ish in this particular and specific tear in the fabric of space-time, because who loves you, baby? Yep. And one more thing. I told you I was going to slip Columbo in there.
Oh,
somehow.
yeah, we'll get him in there.
Oh, and one more thing, Columbo. You just say that, and then, well, people of a certain age may know it.
Yeah,
But it is
no doubt.
also our duty to incorporate the timelessness of pop culture. Okay? So, little sample here, little sample there. You got to know where the source material is. It's only fair. Only fair. Oh, boy. Monica Crowley. We talked about Monica Crowley. She was like Flynn's second in command. People keep forgetting that. She registered as a foreign agent for pro-Putin Ukrainian guy.
Yeah. Yep.
Then Flynn turns out, he says, hey, I never worked for the Russians. Ask my speaker bureau how much I got paid. Turns out he got paid some ungodly amount. Well, not ungodly. I mean, when you think that Bill Clinton was able to command, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million for a speaking fee, for instance. That's a little different. But Flynn, in one pop, got 43 grand. Okay. Oh, and that 43 grand, of course, was something that he didn't really report to his army bosses because he was still under the umbrella of the military at the time.
Yeah.
Which usually puts you in the brig.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, generally speaking, yeah.
I mean, even now, as he's a civilian, I mean, this is bad stuff. And Monica Crowley, I don't know. It's And do you notice how quickly they're trying to ram all this stuff down our throats before, what is the 1930s detective movie parlance? The gig is up. They come in with their little snub-nosed 38. All right, buddy, the gig is up. You're under arrest. And they're trying to cram it all down our throats, Wink. Okay. I had this feeling I wasn't alone in this sentiment. I really did. And now it's been corroborated. And by who? Well, think Progress, and more specifically, Jeremiah Towns. Criminal justice reporter there, of course. Approximately 12 million people are held in jail each year. The majority of them are nonviolent offenders and people detained for their inability to pay bail. But as the country braces for, she uses the P word, I can't. Donald Trump. We'll just say Donald Trump. Okay, you know who we're talking about. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions. I like to do that because it's just kind of funny saying Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Their crackdown on crime, few Americans agree with how jails are being used. According to a new poll conducted by Zogby and RTI International and released by the MacArthur Foundation, a well-known, long-time liberal organization, obviously. MacArthur sounds liberal, even though it also sounds like the guy that went to the Philippines. So you figure it out. I mean, they're so confused. They can't figure anything out anymore, Wink. Yesterday we talked about the specific and strategic dismantling of the State Department. And then Tillerson said, I'm sorry, I can't meet with the South Korean ambassador or anybody else or the Japanese people or even my own members of my embassy wherever I'm flying to because I'm too tired. Remember when they griped about Hillary not having any energy?
Yeah.
And she went to 38 countries in a year? In 1 year? But the point I'm trying to make is that while Tillerson's just so tired to deal with it, they're talking about, we don't need to talk to North Korea. We'll just bomb them first. Those are essentially the headlines before we came on the air week. I hate bringing
Yep.
Especially since they stopped making those nuclear resistant desks that we had in school.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That we had to dive under. They were supposed to be nuclear resistant. That's what they said.
Right.
Dive under the desk when the bomb explodes, kiddies. Okay, I'm sorry. That's on a whole different subject. Okay, of the over 3,000 people surveyed across the country, 62% of respondents support rehabilitation for nonviolent offenders instead of locking them up to prevent future crimes or using jail as a form of punishment. Wait a second. If they're violent offenders, wouldn't you want to try to keep them from being violent again? I don't understand. Maybe you want to rehabilitate those two. They may have longer sentences, but it may take longer to rehabilitate them. I don't know. Call me an extremist. About 75% preferred rehabilitation for nonviolent offenders with mental illness. Well, why are they in jail instead of a hospital? That's my next question. Why are we criminalizing the mentally ill? I know when they commit criminal offenses. I understand that. But they should be in a hospital. Maybe, you know what? I should backtrack a little bit here because they are in somewhat of a hospital setting, and then when they supposedly have been cured of their illness, they get put in the general jail population. But I dare say that the idea of rehabilitation rather than punitive is even more important in a situation where a hospital is involved. That's just me. The poll also found that few Americans support pretrial detention for people who cannot afford bail. And of course, we know that's a scam. But you know, it's so imbued in our consciousness about how that's supposed to be. I mean, you get arrested. If you make bail, you get to get out. If you can't make bail, you don't get out. If they don't impose bail, you don't get out. If you get bail, you get a chance to get out. And there's a bail bondsman involved in all those cases, unless you're so rich that, you know, you just go and say, here's for the bail, and and here's a little bit for you too. Okay. Maybe put my DUI murderous son in a diversion program. Thank you, sir. I mean, Your Honor. Excuse me. Oh, boy. As for people who are convicted of a crime, 18% of respondents support jails as a form of punishment, as opposed to 32% who believe that jails should be rehabilitative. Now, I should also say there's a difference in definition between jails and prison. Of course, you know, prison are state and federal institutions, whereas jails tend to be county and below. Right? County, right. Municipalities, cities, unincorporated county areas where, no, they wouldn't do that. Unincorporated county areas where constitutional rights don't apply. Maybe that's the next move, Wink. Sure. Property rights and national security.
Okay.
All right. In 2015, the Urban Institute found that 64% of all jail detainees have a history of mental illness. In 2016, a separate study from the Public Citizens Health Research Group and the Treatment Advocacy Center found that 40.4% of jails in 39 participating states have a large, seriously mentally ill population. Yep. You know, we all know this, but it needs to be codified, and we need to really take it more seriously. Nearly 96% of all jails involved in the study had some inmates with serious mental illness. Despite the public's preference for rehabilitation, the newest public poll comes at a time when the national jail population is growing and under a law and order presidential administration poised to expand even more in the near future. Well, you got to have more jails to put more brown people in and their fellow travelers, literally and figuratively, Wink.
Exactly.
Got to have jobs. You know, you're either a guard or you're a prisoner. Okay. I'm a lone wolf, Wink. I'm out there on the prairie, just where I am, trying to avoid people. Nurses. Canadian nurses. Apparently, they're a threat to national security, Wink. Or could it be Or could it be a peak? A peak. Oh, I apologize. This is by David Edwards out of our story. New immigration policies put in place by Donald Trump have already had consequences for some Canadian nurses with jobs in the United States, according to CBC News. That's Canadian Broadcasting. Canadian nurses returning to their jobs last week were shocked when they were turned away by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents. There have been reports that nurses with jobs at Henry Ford in Detroit were unable to renew their visas, and one of the hospital's new hires was denied entry into the country. Advanced practice nurses such as anesthesists with non-immigrant NAFTA professional, or otherwise known as TN visas, are impacted by the new rules. 30,000 to 40,000 Canadians work in the U.S. with those TN visas, CBC reported. We really question the motives, immigration lawyer Mark Topolewski told CBC. All of the immigration executive orders and all the things being rolled out have been focused on national security first. And this is clearly not an issue of national security whatsoever. These specialty nurses are hard to find. There's more positions than there are people available. They're coming here to help our patients. I just don't understand what the policy goal is by doing something like this. It makes absolutely no sense. Of course it doesn't, because it's punitive and arbitrary. And when you put people on the front line with the power to be a guard, they're going to be a guard. Won't they? If you give a guard an inch, they're going to take a Gestapo mile. It happens every time. It's only been studied over and over and over. And they get it from on high too, Wink. You know that. Okay, we got to start looking at our Canadian border. You know, there might be some Trudeau people who, you know, better shape. I mean, my daughter keeps on wanting to go to, like, musicals with Justin Trudeau.
Indeed.
You know, she did. She went to this Canadian musical with Justin Trudeau. Well, she sat between Justin Trudeau and some other luminary on the other side. But still, I just like the idea that, I don't know, there might be some international relations going on. I would hope so. We need to corrupt them from within. With,
we do.
You know, love, peace, and understanding. Right? Start corrupting them from within with those sentiments. Next thing you know, they might be the Rockefeller Foundation. You know, the kids of the Rockefellers were so appalled at the history of their industrialist ancestry. They said, we have to do something to kind of like turn the tide on this. And that's how the Rockefeller Foundation got it. Just saying. Okay. This next article is by Ian Millhiser, of course, the go-to person on constitutional law, Supreme Court news. Out of Think Progress. Not just Out of Think Progress, but anywhere. You got to go to Think Progress usually to find them, but, you know. Two big stories broke on Wednesday regarding Trump's Muslim ban, but only one of them received the headlines it deserved. Worse, the largely unmentioned story is likely to have much deeper implications for the future than the story that dominated the news. The first story, of course, was the fact that a federal judge in Hawaii ordered a nationwide halt on the latest version of the Muslim ban, at least until the courts can figure it out, in Trump's words. Or in Trump's words, until they can figure out what the hell is going on. Judge Derek Watson's decision halting the ban was soon matched by a similar decision by a federal judge in Maryland. Meanwhile, the federal appeals court that ruled against the original version of Trump's Muslim ban announced that it would not disturb that decision. In and of itself, that is not particularly interesting. Appeals courts rarely second-guess decisions by a panel of their own members. Let's see. What is interesting and disturbing for opponents of the Muslim ban is that 5 judges on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit said Trump should have won his case. You know, that terribly liberal Ninth Circuit?
Yeah.
Trump thinks you can disband the Ninth Circuit like you would a boy band.
Right.
Oh, no, man. We got to get some new talent. Get some new talent. Get him in there. Can't do that, Trump. And the fact that one of these judges in particular sided with Trump is bad news for lawyers, hoping that the Muslim ban will ultimately be shut down by the Supreme Court. The Ninth Circuit is one of the more liberal federal appeals court. Only 7 of its 25 active judges were appointed by Republican presidents. So the 5 judges who backed Trump make up the bulk of the court's Republican-appointed members. Isn't it funny how they all go in lockstep? I don't know. It's weird. It's like there's some sort of little switch, and they all turn into little soldier ants or worker ants, right? All marching in their straight line, all under their prime directive. It is amazing to me. Oh, we're going to have a neo-Nazi construct with the former Soviet bloc. Who would have thought that? Oh, it's white nationalist. Yeah, well, just look at what's going on in this country. Diversity. Oh my God. Well, of course, the dissenting opinion arguing that Trump should have won was written by, yes, Judge J. Bybee, who is best known for signing the infamous torture memos during the George W. Bush administration. So the fact that Bybee would side with Trump in a national security case is not especially interesting. Of course, some of us thought Bybee should have been in jail, but instead he got a position on the Ninth Circuit. Balance, I guess.
Yeah, that's it.
Of these 3, I'm sorry. However, Bybee's opinion was joined by Judges Alex Kozinski, Consuela Callahan, and Sandra Ikuda, all of whom are viewed as much more moderate than Judge Bybee. Of these, Ikuda's vote is perhaps the least surprising. Judge Ikuda, who clerked for Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, arose out of a conservative tradition of judicial restraint that was both very much on vogue during the Bush years and entirely consistent with an opinion calling for courts to defer to the president. Judge Kozinski's vote, by contrast, is quite a bit more surprising. Kozinski is a former clerk to Justice Anthony Kennedy and approaches many cases similarly to his former boss. Kozinski also has a thick libertarian streak. If Kozinski thinks that Trump's Muslim ban should survive judicial review, that's a sign that the Supreme Court's conservatives will see the ban the same way. I have to say, since the Ninth Circuit is housed in San Francisco, my view of Kozinski is decidedly different than being somewhat less than a lockstep Republican, because I remember him during the Bush years, and there was a lot of apologizing for certain cases that came up that were a direct result of Bush ideas of law, order, and any number of things, even torture cases. But I have noticed that he's been on C-SPAN and hasn't seemed as Borkian as he sometimes can be in terms of libertarian streak. The opinion Kozinski joined argues that courts may not dig into the true motives animating Trump's Muslim ban in order to determine whether it was motivated by unconstitutional religious bias. Wait a second, I thought all these people were about original intent. Now they're not.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Now they don't want to know the original intent behind this Muslim ban. because then it would be considered a Muslim ban, and that's unconstitutional. Okay. And then Millhiser goes on and cites the pertinent case law to describe that. So if Trump says that he is banning Muslims for legitimate national security reasons, the courts can't dig into whether he's actually banning these Muslims because they are Muslims. The problem with Bybee's opinion is that Mandel, one of the cases that was cited by Millhiser, is not the last word on this topic. In Kerry versus Din, Justice Kennedy wrote that courts may dig into an executive branch official's real motives when there is, quote, an affirmative showing of bad faith, unquote, on the part of the official. That is, if the official is lying about the real motives. And the fact that Trump spent his presidential campaign bragging about his plans to ban Muslims certainly suggests that his administration is not telling the truth when they claim that his Muslim ban has nothing to do with religion. Bybee, however, argues that Kennedy's bad faith exception to Mandel should not apply to the president because it would be, quote, a huge leap to suggest that Din's bad faith exception also applies to the motives of bad policymakers as opposed to those of consular officers, unquote. What? Senior policy makers may act in bad faith and get away with it, at least according to Judge Bybee, even if junior officials may not. Oh, I get it. If the president does it, it's not a crime.
Right.
This is what Bybee's saying. The guy that said it's okay to crush a child's testicles, if you think that you might be able to stop World War 18.
Right.
And I don't mean that you've already had 17 world wars, but sort of like preemptively, just to you're going to have World War 18, and you might as well make sure that those genes aren't passed on. Yeah,
hey,
now they're not.
A quick shout out to Alan out there who sent us a tweet that he got the book in Angle of Repose Friday at his bookstore today.
Oh.
Good timing.
And I would also suggest next, if you haven't already, All the Little Live Things is another pillar in the Wallace Stegner canon.
There you go.
So Angle of Repose and All the Little Live Things. Okay, nevertheless, the conservative wing of the Supreme Court has a history of tacking well to the right of even conservative judges on the federal courts of appeals. And the first major legal challenge to the Affordable Care Act, the view that Congress could not enact Obamacare under its constitutional power to regulate commerce, was very much a minority view on the courts of appeal. Nevertheless, every member of the Supreme Court's conservative wing signed on to this view. Kind of makes you wonder, Heritage Foundation, Federalist Society, imbuing legalistic automatons and how to view the world when the proper triggers are triggered. I don't know. It's weird. Similarly, in Zubik v. Burrell, a major birth control case, every member of the court's conservative wing sided with a single outlier circuit that rejected the overwhelming judicial consensus in favor of the Obama administration's actions to foster access to contraception. The fact that Kozinski, in particular, was willing to sign on to Bybee's opinion suggests that history may repeat itself in the Muslim ban cases. Well, let's hoping Washington's AG, Hawaii's AG, Maryland's AG, California's AG, et cetera, and ACLU and everybody else who are enjoined in this and more are prepared for this, because I would think they would be. Like I said, Kozinski can be a loose cannon in all of this. Once again, once the whole court's enjoined in it, rather than just the panels, That's why the Trump administration only wants it to be seen, at most 9 instead of all 28. Okay, well, let's get back to our time schedule of sorts here. It being Friday, we got a little padding here and there. It's all good. So let's listen to our Jim Hightower break. We'll come back, go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes community calendar, and then the Friday News Dump and Recycling Center. You are listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Wink and Justice, and we will be right back.
Some people who attain high public office grow in their position of trust. Some, however, just bloat. Bloat has been on spectacular display in the first months of Donald Trump's presidential tenure. He had a disastrous start, choosing a cabinet and staff mostly made up of ideological quacks, incompetents, and Wall Street grifters. Yet, buoyed by his explosive ego, President Trump pronounced his start historic. Quote, "I don't think there's ever been a president elected who in this short period of time has done what we've done." Sadly, he's right. For example, they made a reckless, unconstitutional attempt to ban millions of Muslim immigrants from our land. They had to axe the kooky guy he chose to be his national security advisor. They've apparently been caught colluding with Russian meddlers in our politics. Some record. And now, Trump has embraced a GOP replacement of Obamacare, hailing the Trump Care substitute that will jack up our health care costs, cut benefits, and eliminate coverage entirely for millions of working class and poor people, while also sneaking in yet another underhanded tax cut for the rich. It's so awful that even hordes of Republican lawmakers have gagged, refusing to swallow it. Yet, lost in self-deception, Trump calls it wonderful. We have a president who is detached from reality, careening from one mess to another. But who will say the emperor has no clothes? He's so far gone that when he read his recent address to Congress straight off the teleprompter without his usual pugnacious ranting, Republican enablers of his antics and even the media establishment applauded him for being presidential. This is Jim Hightower saying, huh? The speech was a nasty wad of lies and right-wing nonsense. If the occasional appearance of sanity is all we ask of Trump, then his reign of insanity will be our fault.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back. Thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York 21 on the East Coast. Our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud, whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio, and thus by extension the After Show, to span the globe, the solar system, out past the Oort cloud, and beyond. And I often make light of that too, but the crew is actually, they're far ranging in terms of where they are geographically around the globe.
Yes.
And
help
so I'm just saying they're not really in the cloud, but what their tasks are, it's almost as if they are.
Mostly, yeah.
Thank you.
Cloud-based. I guess,
Cloud-based for that part. Okay, today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar is facilitated as it is every Friday by Smiley Creek. And she opens up the diary today with the question, want to be deployed? And what does that mean? Well, wouldn't you know it? The ACLU is organizing a resistance training with the ACLU. And what would that entail? Well, many, many things. And I would suggest, yes, indeed, let's go to that diary. And because it's quite comprehensive with links galore about how you can become involved in many different levels. I mean, resistance isn't just manning the barricades.
Right.
But resistance can be manning the barricades in a metaphorical sense, too,
Yes.
which means that it doesn't necessarily mean physically, but we can man the barricades in so many fashions. Yes. Okay, well, there's a lot to do, and what we need to do, you know what's sad about all of this, Wink, is that enough has gone on within the machinery of government now.
Yep.
That it's going to take a little bit of time to right it.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is.
When we do finally get to right it. And it's like the momentum of a ship. That's why they call it the ship of state. It does not turn on a dime.
Right.
But if you're propelling on a particular tack, you can't take that back. Right. It takes a little bit of time for you to slip along the water and start going stern or aft. So.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. Wisconsin Cossacks are, of course, as we've reminded you all week, are starting a group. And Cosmail Chris the Colodem, if you'd like to join the Wisconsin Cossacks group. Navajo, of course, maintains the event list. If you have an event or a group, let her know, and it will be duly noted on the diary and here on the After Shows Networks Radio Daily Codes Connect United Act Daily Codes Community Calendar. Colorado Community Cossacks, led by Left-Handed Colorado Tim, have their caffeinating liberally meet up every fourth Saturday of every month. This month it's on March 25th at Common Grounds Coffee House, 44th and Vallejo in Denver, from 9 a.m. to noonish at the table by the piano. That way you know. That's where they all are. And actually, Colorado is one of those groups that don't necessarily announce who is coming, but they always have a big group. So
right.
Even though it's not necessarily noted in the diary, they have a big group coming. So still RSVP with Colorado Tim and Left-Handed. New York Cossacks are going to be meeting up, so mark your calendar, April 23rd, because Navajo is in town on a Sunday at Spitzer's Corner, 101 Rivington Street in the Ludlow District at high noon. Go ahead and Cosmail Navajo to RSVP. She is handling the event list, Her tasks never end. She's kind of like Hillary. How can you accuse someone like Navajo of being low energy?
Yeah.
I mean, she's everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
All right. And there's quite a few people showing up. They got a few maybes, but they got a lot of people actually showing up to Spitzer's Corner. So Cosmail Navajo, if you're going to be in New York, April 23rd. All right. Thinking Fella and Ojibwa, of course, are organizing the third Epic Glacier National Park meetup, held June 30th through July 2nd. And there is an important diary for important planning details at the Connect Unite Act Daily Codes Community Diary. So go link on that. And healing energy out to Bill in Portland, Maine. The Netroots Nation 2017 Daily Codes Annual Cheers and Jeers Dinner will be held Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. at a location to be determined. Cosmail, of course, Navajo to RSVP. There's quite a few people coming. They're going to It's going to be just like it was in Detroit. They're going to need a whole other. They had to get the Joe Louis Hall.
Yep.
The right next to the big one that we were in.
Exactly. Yep.
Jeez. All right. And that looks like that is your Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar for the 17th of March. St. Patrick's Day, we call it here, 2017. Yeah, very embarrassing moment yesterday when Trump. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that saw that it could have been embarrassing. But Trump met with the prime minister, the president of Ireland, and the president of Ireland. Oh, well, I'll tell you this: Trump looked a little pissed because the president of Ireland was essentially speaking in glowing terms about how America was the beacon of hope and let in all these immigrants. And, of course, Irish immigrants were in before there was any immigration laws to prevent them. But boy, Trump didn't really like any of the idea, like people coming into my country. What are people coming to my country for? Not knowing that he's like a generation removed from an immigrant family, from
Right.
an immigrant family fleeing war in Europe. Funny how that works, eh? Oh yeah. But it was quite delicious, to use the parlance of the Irish pub, that Donald Trump so roundly put in his place in the White House too. It was great. So if you see any YouTubes or whatnot of that, just take a gander at Trump's scowl while the address is being made.
Yeah.
Okay. Monsanto. This is by Raynard Loki out of Alternate. Documents suggest collusion between the agrochemical giant and the EPA. Well, it's okay. It's all right. Pruitt's getting rid of the bad parts of the EPA that would stop this.
Right.
Okay. And is replacing it with the people that have been colluding, and you might as well bring in more. Because this is big work. I jest. Monsanto suffered a major setback on Tuesday when a federal judge in San Francisco unsealed documents that call into question the agrochemical giant's research practices and the safety of its best-selling herbicide Roundup, the world's most produced weed killer. The documents counter industry-funded research that has long asserted Monsanto's flagship product used by home gardeners, public park gardeners, and farmers and applied to hundreds of crops is relatively safe. I always like that, relatively safe. The court documents included Monsanto's internal emails and email traffic between the company and federal regulators. The records suggest that Monsanto had ghost-written research that was later attributed to academics and indicated that a senior official at the EPA had worked to quash a review of Roundup's main ingredient, glyphosate, that was to have been conducted by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Think of that now. You know how quick the right wing was to speak about, the collusion and manufacturing of science, attributed to, this conspiracy among all the leading scientists in the world about climate change, right? And everybody's sitting around thinking, how and why would they think something like that? And then you look at what these people did here. It's classic. One of the documents unsealed by Judge Vincent Chabria was an email written by William F. Haydens, a Monsanto executive, giving his colleague the green light to ghostwrite glyphosate research and then hire academics to put their names on the papers. Academics. I don't know. I don't call those people academics, but I guess it's done. He even cited an instance where the company had used this method in the past. Quote, we would be keeping the cost down by us doing the writing, and they would just edit and sign their names, so to speak, wrote Haydens. The document also indicates that within the EPA, there was not only internal disagreement regarding the agency's own safety assessment of Roundup, but also foul play. In one email from 2015, Dan Jenkins, a Monsanto executive, said that Jess Rowland, an EPA official who was heading the cancer risk evaluation of Roundup, referring to an agency review, had told him over the phone, if I can kill this, I should get a medal. And so the review never happened. I wonder what kind of medal did he get? Did he get one of those like cute little ones that Tillerson got in Russia? Or did he get one of those neo-Nazi ones that Gorka got from Hungary? Or maybe a combination of the two. I don't know. What kind of medal do you get for that, Wink?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that one has been cast as we joke about it right now. The revelations from the current court challenge, a combination of more than 55 lawsuits against Monsanto in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. Just call it the Ninth Circuit. Damn. Including individuals who claim to have developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma due to glyphosate exposure, add significant weight to the mounting concerns about the widespread use of glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup. It also raises concerns about Monsanto's questionable methods to ensure a light regulatory hand on its marketplace activities. Think about it. It's going to have an even lighter regulatory hand now. Oh, joy, joy, joy. So much for spring, Wink. I don't know. I need color in my garden. Got to keep the weeds back. Oh my God, there's a blade of grass growing in the crack in my little walkway. I need to put poison on it rather than, I don't know, take the weed whacker to it. And the weed whacker can be electrical and run by water turbines. Just me. In addition to its potential cancer-causing properties, Roundup has been linked to a host of other health issues, such as ADHD, Alzheimer's, kidney disease, liver disease, reproductive problems, and birth defects, as well as environmental impacts such as the record decline of monarch butterflies. And let's not forget, there's also nicotinoids involved in this, and we don't have very many honeybees left either. Too bad for you. I just gotta have my pansies popping. Okay. The link to this article, and it's quite comprehensive and tells a harrowing story, can be had at show notes either on our blogger site, also at the Daily Kos site. You can find, look at our social media, and you'll find links to the show notes there as well. Okay. Now, I do know and have considered the arguments for and against glyphosate. And like anything, in moderate use, I suppose, we can deal. But the problem is that you have millions upon millions of people all using it moderately. Makes a pretty big, blob floating down the tributary and growing algae right out there in the ocean. Thank you very much. And I got to tell you, water treatment plants aren't really designed to filter this out, and that's why you are probably, I mean, this is what some science is showing, is that that could be how, it's from runoff or whatnot, and you get these cancer cells popping up here and there that are mysterious. And Monsanto knew. Monsanto covered it up, and they used junk science and then accused real scientists of junk science. So whenever I don't know, the projection is just astounding to me, Wink. Remember when they called the EPA, or, the good parts of the EPA, the Nazis? Yeah, I said, oh, look out. Once they call you a Nazi, you know that they got the jackboots on right now. This is by Travis Geddes, Out of Raw Story. White supremacists have been promoting the myth that the first slaves brought to the Americas were Irish, not African, but a historian says there's simply no evidence to back their racist claims. Liam Hogan, a research librarian at the Limerick City Library, said about debunking the myth after spotting a widely shared global research article in 2013 and realized its potential for misinformation. It was quite clear to me that many would never engage with the history of the transatlantic slave trade when they had this false equivalence to fall back on, Hogan said. I think that's what convinced me that I needed to put the record straight. The myth essentially equates indentured or penal servitude with racialized, perpetual, hereditary chattel slavery, Hogan said. Racists claim the Irish slave trade began in 1612 and was not abolished until 1839. And they insist white slavery has been covered up by politically correct historians. Yeah, that's it. Okay, the various memes making many claims, including but not limited to the following: that Irish slaves were treated far worse than black slaves, that there were more Irish slaves than black slaves, that Irish slaves were worth less than black slaves, that enslaved Irish women were forced to breed with enslaved African men, and that the Irish were slaves for much longer than Irish slaves, Hogan said. This is then invariably followed up by overtly racist statements, he added. For example, yet, when is the last time you heard an Irishman bitching and moaning about how the world owes them a living? Yeah, have you gotten any of those on Facebook, Wink?
Oh, yeah. Not lately.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, there's you've seen them though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, Hogan hasn't isolated the myth's first appearance on social media, but it's been a common trope on the white supremacist website Stormfront since at least 2003.
Oh, yeah.
And has been trotted out as an argument against reparations for slavery and to attack the Black Lives Matter movement. And, of course, InfoWars trafficked in it. And to be clear, it's cited here as well, the myth has become nearly ubiquitous in social media discussions on slavery and race. And it was even promoted by a blogger on the Liberal Daily Coast website. And I should note, since I am an editor on Black Coast, this fellow, or this diarist, was roundly criticized and, shall we say, made to show the error of his ways. The myth is especially popular among Confederate apologists, and Hogan cites several examples of its deployment during the debate over the Confederate flag displays in the wake of the fatal shootings of 9 black churchgoers by a white supremacist. This year, I've tracked the meme being shared by the Texas League of the South, History of the True South, Love My Confederate Ancestors, and Sons of Confederate Veterans, Hogan said. They seem to believe that this meme somehow negates the fact that the Confederacy fought a war to perpetually enslave millions of African Americans and their descendants. And now, the myth is often supported with citations to the books To Hell or Barbados by Sean O'Callaghan and White Cargo by Don Jordan and Michael A. Walsh, both books of which are historically questionable, according to Hogan, but he said most articles about Irish slaves don't even quote from these sources. Instead, Hogan said most of the articles rely heavily on an unreferenced blog post about the self-published work of Holocaust denier Michael A. Hoffman II. And there you have it. And it's politically correct historians that have been manipulating the story. Ooh. Their belief is that non-whites can't move on due to racial inferiority or social pathology, Hogan continued. So through false equivalence and erasure, they attempt to remove history as a determinant so that they can claim the current socioeconomic position and the mass incarceration of black people in the U.S. is due to racial inferiority. Sort of like Stephen King's Other People's Babies. All right. Well, sorry, folks. The Irish weren't slaves in the sense that we would define slavery.
Oh, not even.
As we know. All right. Well, we better bug out of here. It's the weekend, and we'll be back on Monday, bright and bushy, same time, same station. The Roundtable Roundhouse Power Hour with Wink and Roaring Girl is on tomorrow, Saturday night, 9 p.m. on the West Coast, midnight on the East. And, of course, Jibber Your Jabber on Sunday, 9 on the West Coast, midnight on the East Coast. And check on Sunday, check the Justice Department Music Sans Frontières.
Yes.
An hour right before Jibber Your Jabber.
Yep.
And we'll have, let's see, why don't we do Death Cab for Cuties Transatlanticism? Why not?
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll have Hartman coming up after that. And just stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. And why? Because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink, I will see you on the other side.
All right. We're out.